peaceful coexistence among communities, ethnicities, and groups. Building Bridges comes up every Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11:45 a.m. on J101.9 FM, an initiative of Take and Peace Desk with support by Bread for the World.
One morning to you out there in the city of Jos. I know some people would say, why would you say one morning? But yes, it is. I mean, it's one of those kind of special mornings here in Jos with the unique weather. You know, all woke up to the rain, and then everywhere is cool, everywhere is calm, and everybody is going about their normal businesses as it should be in the city of Jos. So, good morning to you out there. It's 22nd day of September 2021, and just a day after World Peace Day. As you may well be aware, yesterday was World Peace Day 2021, commemorated with the theme recovering better for an equitable and sustainable world. You know, how do we actually recover? How do we actually recover together and better for an equitable and sustainable world? Today's edition of Building Bridges promises to be very interesting and uniting and thought-provoking as it's always been. I'll be the lead advocate for the next 45 minutes thereabout. My name is Joseph Ojodeji. Doing this with me, I have a regular companion from the team. Is no other person than Mr. John Red. You're welcome.
Good morning, listeners, and you're welcome to Building Bridges. Today promises to be another exciting edition. Again, we want to say Happy International Peace Day, although it was celebrated yesterday. But the message still remains that we need one another for peace to reign. We need one another so that we can walk through this part of darkness and see the light at the end of the tunnel. My name is John Red once again, and you're welcome to the program.
Indeed, so let's recover better for an equitable and sustainable world. That was the theme for the World Peace Day 2021. So from there, we actually came up with a topical discussion for today's edition of Building Bridges. Today's edition, we shall be taking a look at something that affects a key segment of our community, a very important population in our community. We'll be looking at persons with disabilities. So we're looking at protection and inclusion of persons with disabilities. We have a guest joining us in the studio, joining us much later on in the as the show progresses, to do justice to this particular topic. Now, we know that the concerns of persons living with disabilities in Nigeria, remains, and even across our communities, people with disabilities live with us. We share our humanity with them daily. They are within our communities. They are within our sphere of influence. They are within our reach. But as you may well be aware, poverty indicators, even for the ordinary Nigerian or the average Nigerian, is quite worrisome, as Nigeria is tagged the poverty capital of the world. Some have actually called it that. And you have a case where an average Nigerian is actually reputed to live below $1 per day, indicator. All these are poverty indicators that are very, very saddening, and as economic realities get tougher by the day, we have a key segment of our population that are vulnerable, and they are actually neglected, as the case may be, and this actually might be tougher for them even in such a situation. So that's what we're looking at: protection and inclusion of persons with disabilities. Now, although the accurate number of persons with disabilities is hardly available, as you may well be aware that we have data problem even in this part of the world, but the World Health Organization and the World Bank indicated that about 30 million Nigerians have one form of disability or the other, while about 63% of adults with disabilities in Nigeria are unemployed. Not to even talk of those with without any form of disabilities. But adults with one form of disabilities or the others, we have about 63% of them are unemployed. Now, what will they do to survive? And these are a very key segment of our population in our community. As you may well be aware,
this is GFM News,
which is between everybody in the communities. And out of this figure, we have about 30% of out-of-school children are also said to be living with one form of disability or the other. Now, this has also increased their level of vulnerability. It has also actually exposed them to different forms of danger, different forms of discrimination, abuse, and neglect, as the case may be. Now, people living with disabilities are at a greater risks. And then we have another key segment, even within those living with disabilities, the women and the girl child.
True.
You know, they are also at even greater risks. But while all these remain, you know, today's topic will actually be dwelling on persons living with disabilities. How do we better protect them within our communities, and how do we ensure that they are included in those processes of decision making, in those processes of articulating their needs and their concerns even within the communities? So, what are the concerns of persons living with disabilities, and how can these concerns be addressed? How can their interests be best factored into community developmental initiatives? And what are the working approaches, policies, and legislations that can be leveraged for the protection of persons living with disabilities in our communities? All these will form the basis of our discussion on today's edition of Building Bridges. Listeners, as you may well be aware, before we proceed into the discussion proper, we usually have a public interest corner where we talk about topical issues affecting our communities, affecting people within the community. So, Mr. John Redd will be taking that within a couple of minutes.
All right. Yes, on the public interest corner today, we will be looking at civil and military engagement in situations that are bound to happen. Now, this is not going to be far from what happened on Monday, not too far from here. That's at the Plateau State Polytechnic, where students were set to come and write their exams on that fateful morning. But on getting to the school, they discovered that the school staff, the staff of the Polytechnic, were on strike. And which is normal for students, they began a peaceful protest. When I mean a peaceful protest, I mean a peaceful protest. I saw what transpired that morning up until when the military got involved, and it became a different thing altogether. Now, while the students were on the protest to express their grievances as to why exams should continue, the military engagement, the military involvement became something else. This is on the record. This is for me a proof that it was first the military that started engaging the students, and it is not supposed to be so. Why will we have military personnel stoning students? Now, we are saying this to say that, look, the security we have around us are supposed to be our partners in this progress, in this work called peace. But in a situation whereby the security will not be civic enough in their engagements with civilians, then that becomes a different thing altogether. Now, students were being chased into the school compound. Some of them were beaten with clubs, with sticks, and this is on record. And we say no to that. We are all partners in this pursuit called peace. And I want to engage the military departments responsible for this, that look, when you engage with people who are civic, please be civic enough. We talked on this program about rules of engagement between civilians and between military. There are different code of conduct, there are rules of engagement. Why do you need to bring out these bikers to come call down a protest like that? It wasn't a riot. In fact, the first people who are supposed to be on ground are supposed to be the policemen. And we have the anti-riot police department. We have the police that are responsible to do this. Why military on a civilian issue? So we call on all and sundry, we call on the government to take actions. Now, sadly to say that a student lost his life in this, and it is on record, and several others were injured. Some are still receiving medication, and others are still recovering from this unfortunate incident. And we want to plead and ask that, look, please, security, we know you are doing your best, but hey, please, there are rules of engagement to this. And this calls for serious reorientation and re-educating the security we have, especially the military, when it comes to civil engagement, when it comes to engaging students, when it comes to engaging people doing protests. I'm aware that there has been a ban about protest. Yes, but these things cannot be. You cannot do away with eventualities, with incidents like this. But when it comes to a situation like this, what do? Be civic enough. So on our public interest corner, we want to say that, please, there should be a synergy between civil and military engagement, especially with the joint task force that we have here in the Plateau State. That's our package for this morning.
I mean, indeed, there should be sanity in the operation of our security operatives. I mean, ensure that you abide by your rules of engagement. You know, these are unarmed students, as has been highlighted.
Very unarmed.
So, you know, there is no justification for that. So, I mean, our heart goes to
I mean, Joseph, I am aware that students, because we live in the digital age, students were trying to record this, and I am aware, I have proofs that students' phones, but some of them were not even recording, but the military seized their phones, and that's an infringement of a right. Seized their phones, which is a personal property, and smashed it. Several students have these complaints.
I mean, it actually calls to mind the fact that we need to re-examine and reassess the actions of our security agents. You know, how properly trained and equipped are they? You know, how enlightened are they? You know, these are issues that, you know, calls to mind.
That's why we call for serious reorientation.
Exactly. We need to work on civil military relations, and even in such a case, as you've rightly highlighted, you know, we have the riot, the anti-riot police unit that could be drafted into such a situation to quell it, I mean, calmly, without, you know, leading to loss of lives, as is the case. But our heart goes to the family of the deceased. We pray that God comfort them and a speedy resolution to the cause of the problem. Okay, let's move on. Yesterday was World Peace Day 2021.
Interesting.
Recovering better for equitable and sustainable community. I mean,
you know, recovering better. When the word recovering is mentioned, you have to know that there was something that was wrong in the first place. We all know that in the wake of 2020, we came up to the challenges of COVID-19.
Absolutely.
Yes. And that affected the world as we know it. It affected the economy. It affected businesses. It affected tourism. It affected even
everything.
Everything. You say. Yes. It even affected sporting events. Some of the world summits that were supposed to go on didn't go on physically. It had to be virtual. Some of the aid that some countries were supposed to get didn't come up on time. And a lot of them, there were a lot of delays. So 2021 seemed to be more promising. And, you know, with the world's economies, those whose economies have been affected are trying as much as they can to revive their economy.
More like a year of recovery, as
2020 should be called the year of recovery, because that was when the vaccines were more available in countries, including Nigeria. So the recovery pattern, or the recovery route, as we'll have it, has been quite commendable when you look at other advanced climes. However, with peculiarity to Nigeria, we want to look at our economy first. How have we been recovering economic-wise when it comes to the COVID-19? Now, during the pandemic, the dollar to the naira was less than 500. Was dwindling between 300 to 400, and now it is 500, 570 in some markets. Now, this is to say that we've not been doing well when it comes to recovery plan. And if you ask me, not to politicize this, but we've not had deliberate plans of our recovery. And I want to say that if a country like Nigeria don't begin to produce, if we don't go back to production, we are nosediving. We keep nosediving. Our major source of revenue in the country, as we know it, is the crude. And when we export our crude oil, what do we get back? Do we get the exact word of what we give out to? So when we're looking at recovery, we need to also talk about diversification of economy.
Absolutely.
Our economy has been one-sided for a very long time. It's about crude oil. It's about our petroleum and the likes. We've talked about this on this program severally, that we have the sector where our greatest earnings used to come from, which is the agricultural sector. Now, how deliberate, not politics, how deliberate have we focused on agriculture? Now, not talking about budgeting now, not talking about putting in money, but how have we even tracked the budget? How have we even tracked the implementation of the production lines? Now, when we give out funds to farmers, how do we monitor that what we give them, or these farmers, they actually put it into use? Now, look at the crops that we've been said to have focused on, and taken about rice. What's the amount of rice, or what's the hectare of rice that was produced, or that has been produced in this country over the farming years? Now, to talk about agriculture again, we cannot talk about agriculture without talking about security.
Absolutely.
We've known that it is no news that almost every part of the country, as we'll have it, is facing one form of insecurity or the other, and that is a threat to farmers.
Absolutely.
Farmers cannot go back to their farms with their eyes closed. Well, I mean, they cannot go back to the farms knowing that they will be safe. So we need to also focus on that. So for economic recovery, there have to be deliberate implementations. Mark what I said, deliberate implementations of what we have on paper, or of what strategies we have. If we don't consider going back to the farms as important, if we don't consider that the security and welfare of farmers is key, then we're all getting it wrong. Then our food production capacity will be very, very low, and will very that's just one aspect of the.
Looking at it from another perspective, it's also a period whereby we actually reflect on our humanity. Talking about our recovery, how can we recover all those developmental strides that we've lost due to insecurity, due to those days of crisis, due to those days of riots? How can we ensure that yes, we actually build bridges? How can we ensure that we build bonds of love? How can we ensure that we build hope where hopelessness exists? How can we recover those lost visions? How can we actually build a confidence whereby there is fear? How can we ensure that yes, we forgive ourselves, to ensure that yes, we move together as one united community? How can we ensure that yes, our community remain one, undivided, and united, stronger, moving together as one? All these are very, very important. So 2021 World Peace Day gives us an opportunity to do that, to ensure that yes, we have a united community, to ensure that yes, we move forward, we recover better for an equitable and sustainable world and community, if you may. We'll bring it down to the community level on this program. That is our aim. And on today's edition of Building Bridges, we are talking about protection and inclusion of persons with disabilities. Yes, are you out there? Do you have one form of disability or the other? Yes, it's a program. We'll expect you to call in at the proper time. We'll open our phone lines to share thoughts with us on your concerns within your communities, on some of your day-to-day struggles, on some of your day-to-day issues you face, issues of policies, issues of protection, issues of resource allocation, even within your communities, and issues of ensure that yes, you are better incorporated into the community. It's very, very important. Yes, we have with us, joining us for the discussion proper, we have Chief Ayuba Burki Gufwan. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Chief Ayuba is the director of Beautiful Gate Handicapped People Center here in Jos. We're glad to have you on the program, sir.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate the privilege of coming on board today and this special day of International World Peace Day.
Thank you very much. So we're looking at the topic, protection and inclusion of persons with disabilities. It's a cold morning here in Jos. Permit me to ask, how has been the morning?
Oh, it's been wonderful, wonderful. It's really cold, it's peaceful, it's calm. So it's a great day. We're blessed to have the rain still falling. That it means we're going to have a bumper harvest.
Absolutely. Amen.
That is going to enhance food security and peace.
Okay, thank you very much. While you joined us earlier on, we read out the statistics whereby we actually quoted the World Health Organization to have actually, in one of its reports, indicated that about 30 million Nigerians have one form of disability or the other. And out of these, about 63% of adults with disabilities in Nigeria are unemployed. This actually shows a gap in catering for the needs of people with disabilities. So you would like to share with us what are some of the daily struggles people with disabilities go through in the communities?
Well, you know, I followed you up as I was driving up here, and I was glad you read out those statistics as they were. But even at that, it was a gross underestimation of the daily challenge of persons living with disabilities. You look at the statistics, the ratio of people living with disabilities that are employed. Now, even those few that are fortunate to have some form of employment, whether it's gainful or not, normally, if you earn a salary, let's talk about the minimum wage of 30,000 naira, is for yourself. You wake up in the morning, you jump into a taxi or a KK, and you report at your duty post, but you close at the end of the day and you are home. But for people living with disabilities, a salary for a normal person, able-bodied person, is for himself alone. But for a person living with disabilities, you need, for those with visual impairment, they need a blind guide.
Okay.
Yep, who follows them around, holds their stick, and they follow him. And if you go to have your lunch, you are paying for two. Same with your taxi costs, same with every other thing. And for some people, they place their guide on a monthly salary. But he receives just the salary that was meant for himself alone. It's the same with someone with hearing impairment who needs to hire an interpreter. And for someone in a wheelchair like myself, in most cases, you need a helper that accompanies you and pushes you around, and you take care of his bills. So the little salary that you get, is shared between two people. And so it is actually a very, very grim picture, situation of people living with disabilities in Nigeria on a day-to-day basis. It is. Now, we're just talking about those who are fortunate to get some form of employment. The vast majority are completely unemployed, and they have to fall back to street begging or depending on family, friends, and well-wishers. We're talking about people who possess the skills and what it takes to be employed. But because of the workplace discrimination, which is further compounded by the general lack of jobs, so it just makes the case of people living with disability double jeopardy.
Well, I mean, that's quite touching. You talked about the workplace discrimination, and then employment problems even for persons with disabilities. Let's look at the issue of protection. How strong are our legislation in terms of guaranteeing the rights of persons with disabilities? And yes, well, people have said we're a country of beautiful laws, but implementation seems to be the problem. But yes, are there even existing protection measures in terms of policies, in terms of legislations that, are existing to say, okay, could help, scale the ordeal of workplace discrimination to say, hey, you don't look at this person for the fact that, yes, he has one form of disability or the other, to ensure that, yes, he has the same opportunity the other person has. So let's look at issues of protection. Are there existing policies or legislation that, could be leveraged by persons with disabilities?
In the past, there was nothing. There were no laws, there were no policy statements, and so it was a terrible situation. Of recent, a few states have taken the right step, and Plateau State was the first, way back in 2005, to implement or to enact the law, Plateau State Citizens with Disabilities Act, that established the Plateau State Disabilities Rights Commission, which was supposed to harness all rights and privileges and responsibilities of government that were hitherto scattered across the various ministries, the ministries of education, agri, health, social welfare and all that. Whatever little pocket of responsibility that government owes people with disabilities was supposed to be harnessed and brought under this huge commission. Now, to start with, that was not really done. The transition, I think it only affected responsibilities that were hitherto domiciled under Ministry of Women Affairs and Social Development only. Other aspects of responsibilities are still where they were. Anyway, so that is a little news to share about. And then in 2018, the President Buhari, finally signed the Nigerians with Disabilities Act, which gave us the first major national bill that caters for persons with disabilities. By its design, it was supposed to operate similar to the Americans with Disabilities Act that was signed years and years back. Now, this bill had been presented to three previous head of states, Obasanjo, General Obasanjo, Yaradua, and Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, and all of these three declined to sign the bill. Anyway, as I said, it was signed into law in the year 2018, and a few states have some form of disability enactments. Other than this, generally speaking, there are no policies, that people with disabilities can fall back on that will guarantee, their protection, their inclusion, and all of that. You have, whenever you travel on international flights, people with disabilities are given priority booking and priority loading and things like that. You don't find it here. You find many airlines, Dana Air in particular, have toned down many people with disabilities at the point of boarding.
But this is discrimination.
This clear discrimination. It is a violation of the various acts, particularly the Nigerians with Disabilities Act, the institutional framework to implement these bills are not yet in place. We've had, for instance, about a year or so, the federal government constituted the board of the National Disabilities Commission. But as I said, the institutional framework that will monitor how the bill is faring as it affects the health, employment, education, and all aspects of life generally as it affects people living with disabilities are not yet on board. And, we are not a country that respects laws. So it is one thing to have the laws, but then it is another thing to have the willpower to implement. For instance, we have the Plateau State Disabilities Rights Commission, but people living with disabilities on the plateau are not necessarily better off than people living with disabilities in states that do not have clear-cut laws. In fact, we've had people living with disabilities on the plateau who have migrated to, for instance, Jigawa State, that does not have a disabilities bill, but they had a governor that had empathy, and he put some policies in place that was attracting migrant disabled people back to Jigawa State. I remember way back in the days of Sule Lamido, he put the people with disabilities on a monthly stipend of 5,000 naira per month. Nearly 50,000 people, and a lot of them were people who were hitherto resident in Jos, and they migrated back to key into those kind of inclusive policies. So we need a lot more than just having the laws. The willpower to give full effect to the laws where they exist needs to be in place.
Well, in terms of you've talked a lot about issues of policies and issues of legislation, as the case may be, but it's something related to the issue of inclusion. That's for women. You know, we have the affirmative action, whereby we say there is a certain percentage of women will be included even in governance and the rest.
35%.
Yes, exactly. So I was like, I was actually, thinking when you were actually talking, can we have something whereby we have an affirmative action for handicapped people too, or people with disabilities? So, okay, we want to have a certain percentage of them, perhaps maybe in the legislature, in various appointments in governance, so that when you're talking about issues of persons with disabilities, they are able to provide deeper insights even into those decisions. Now, you mentioned earlier on the plateau that we have the Disability Rights Commission. Let's quickly look into the activities of the commission. How effective has it been over the years?
That bill was passed in the governor, His Excellency Chief Joshua Chibidarie, signed that bill sometimes in November or thereabout of 2005. And those were tumultuous periods for his administration. And so he was unable to give effect to the bill until he handed over to His Excellency Jonah Jang, sometimes in 2007. And the bill was really not implemented until towards the end of the 8 years of Jonah Jang, and he constituted the board and the members of the commission. Then the current governor sustained that effort. So it has been on ground now for maybe close to, about 8-9 years. But it's still a baby. Okay. It's still crawling on the ground. It has not really gotten the necessary backing that will allow it to carry out its activities the way it should be. So way back, for instance, during the military, I remember under the presidency of General Ibrahim Babangida, there was a policy to the effect that 5% of all employment opportunities in both private and public sectors should be reserved for people living with disabilities. Now, as commendable as that was, it was never implemented. And even if it was, the population of people living with disabilities was far above 5%. And, affirmative actions are good when it comes to appointments and things like that. But for elective positions and other representative positions, it is difficult to have affirmative actions implemented, because the way the constituencies and the various elective offices are designed, none is reserved for persons living with disabilities. So I am not a fan of affirmative action when it comes to election. I believe that when it comes to election, people should demonstrate quality. People should demonstrate competence, so that every time you are elected, it is on the basis of your competence, on your basis of merit, that the electorate have confidence in you, they have trust in your ability to perform, and they give you the votes. By and large, I think that's what has happened. Now, when it concerns peace, the people living with disabilities actually do not live in an island. We don't live in a world of our own. We live in the same world with everyone. So what affects able-bodied people directly affects people living with disabilities double. You understand? the COVID that caused a lot of job losses in most of the places. The people that were the first victims were people living with disabilities. These were people whose services were not considered necessary. These were people who some employers of labor just brought them on board on compassionate grounds. You know, not necessarily. I got a job with the Plateau State Ministry of Education in the year 1998. And as we were going through the documentary process, you know, signing the forms, filling up, and getting placed in our respective positions, the lady right there at the J.D. Gombok Secretariat took a deep look at me, and she heaved, then made a statement that was very profound. And she said, sometimes government can be magnanimous. And she was speaking directly to me, and I said, what do you mean by government can be magnanimous? I said, I showed her my certificate. I went to the same school with everyone, and I passed all the required examinations, and I was a qualified teacher. So I felt that was a gross on the, I don't know how to even place it, that my appointment or my employment was considered an act of magnanimity. So with those kind of mindsets, if there is to be a job cut, it will be very easy for people in that category to be the first casualties.
All right, Chief. Let's open our phone lines. Let's hear from our listener, you know, and you'll be able to react to them after that. We'll open our phone lines now. Please, when you call us, tell us your name and where you're calling from. Then please go straight to the point. You have a minute. Please, our phone lines is 090556669. That's 6 in 4 places. We have a call. We'll have here. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Okay, I think we lost that. Please, when you call us, just tell us your name and where you're calling from. Turn down the volume of your radio set, and then please go straight to the point. We're talking about protection and inclusion of persons with disabilities. I think we'll have a call. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning, John Rex. It's Radio Mama. I do not be calling from Ranches.
Good morning.
Good morning to your guest.
No, thank you.
Let me tell you something, John Rex. You know that the first time I met Ayuba was in one of Bello Lukman's book launch. I couldn't believe it. I didn't know he was somebody living with disability. Usually. Because I used to hear of his philanthropic position, you understand? But I never knew he was somebody living with disability. Why am I saying so? You see, if every other person living with disability has this kind of mindset, believe in himself, struggle, you know, and all that, most people living with disability today would have been on the next level. I'm not saying that government intervention should not be there, but what I'm saying is that, you know, at least believe in yourself in the first instance, you know, and then even help come. You know, that is what I'm trying to say. Then another thing again is I wasn't so excited when Buhari signed that particular bill, you know, that has to do with disability, even though it didn't sail through in other administrations. Why? I wasn't very excited because the implementation is a problem in Nigeria, and that's what I have said here. So, but all I want to say at this point is that I want to tell us that we are all potential disabled persons. It could happen an accident. I have a friend who had 2 arms. He traveled with his family. Believe you me, he came back with 1 arm. They had an accident and it has been amputated. He's now looking for a way to buy the artificial arm, you know, the left hand. You know, he has not gotten it yet. Believe you me, you understand what I'm trying to say. Yeah. Yes, so that's all I want to say. So we should stop all this our attitude towards them and all that. Anybody can become disabled at any particular time. So God bless you. God will continue to protect you. I don't want to be cautioned when I'm on air. You know? I think that's in communication. So my students will start saying, but they keep on cautioning, so I avoid it. God will bless you, Mr. Yuba. God will bless you. God will continue to protect you.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Let's not give up on this country. Don't give up. I'm very happy with your spirit. That's my day this morning.
Thank you very much, Radio Mama, for that. That was a very wonderful and quite sincere point of view. Do we have another call?
Yes, we do. Hello, good morning.
Hello?
Hello? Okay, I think we lose that. Our phone lines are open 090-988-48848 or 090-5566-6699. That's 6 in 4 places. You can call us. We are actually talking about protection and inclusion of persons with disabilities. How have we been able to harmonize their concerns even into our community developmental initiatives? Hello, good morning. Hello. Okay, I think we have a problem with that. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, my presenter.
Good morning.
I'm Mr. Lucky from Bukola Kobi.
All right, Mr. Lucky, we can hear you. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I have so much confidence. People living disability are doing the truth. Anything that they try to do, I'm giving it out. Apart from your people in the studio there. You know one man they call Vinicius. You used to make calls. You have not seen life. You don't saw in life when the people invited us. I understand. I'll call up to come and tell for their 2 years anniversary. I saw him like, who was in this man is a qualified legal practitioner. He's a lawyer. He's a blind man. I get my point.
Absolutely.
And anytime you hear him speak, you see his competence in him. You see the legacy competence in him. And my worry is that this COVID-19 period, what have been done for this? I told you many times. The government has not been enough. You must tell the truth. Intimidation. The flesh was basically in some job. People should get them, give them job. I don't like that one now. I think that man should engage in one of the justice.
Okay.
I think we should be able to do the right thing for ourselves.
All right. All right.
God bless you.
Amen. Thank you very much, Mr. Lucky from Mr. Lucky. We are glad you called. 090-556-6699. That's 6 in 4 places or 090-988-48848. We're looking at protection and inclusion of persons with disabilities. Let's see what we have here. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
You are speaking with Brabari Abirina Abinkanene from Call.
All right, Brabari.
Our friend from Bassa.
Yes, sir. I'll say hi to your guest, Mr. Ayuba Gufan.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
The director of Beautiful Gates. Sir, that presenter, he's the guest over there is a wonderful man.
Oh, glad.
I will never forget what just happened in Nyango due to what you are discussing there. The rights and peace and good living for a person living with disability. He brought some relief material. I had it on air to the Brangwa Irugwe. Okay, now when they say person with disability, he's on wheelchair now, but out of his pockets or his resources, and he brought it so that to see the plight of person living with disability, most especially in the rural area. He mentioned what when so-called able say they're having problems during the COVID-19 or the challenges affecting the common man in the rural area, you know that a person living with disability is facing double.
Absolutely.
As I'm talking now, I'm a visual impaired person.
Wow.
Everybody is aware of what is happening in Bassa, in Uruguay, Chiefdom. We lost 4 of our members. They cannot run because of the unrest between headers or the attackers that we don't know where they come from. So it's high time for people, not government alone, to carry person with a disability along. When you go to the government vocational training center for the blind in Zawa, there's nothing to smile about there. It's not looking at an institution. For several times, our own, walking stick, that is mobility care, his foundation all the time, including Dr. Rice. When I was there, they give us all these things. But now, nothing is going on there. And issue of disability is all the time from the family. It's not about the disability. How does people look at us? Can we contribute to the growth of this very country?
Absolutely.
Find out in the rural area, decision making.
All right, Brabiri.
They don't call us to decide or to discuss it with us. So without us, nothing for us.
All right.
So it's high time in this 21st century for everybody to carry along. The educated one to be given, all what it takes.
All right.
Abirina,
And
can you hear me?
we cannot go to school. Let us be trained and given support. So it's a nice one. Thank you.
Thank you
Have
very
a nice
much.
time, sir.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much. I think that will be the size from our listener. We'll call it a day from hearing from our listener. So we'll give Chief Yuba, a minute to reply to the observations of the callers.
Well, thank you to the callers. I think by way of summary, they captured the essence of the discussion. Generally, like Abirina Binkanene said, 4 persons with disabilities were among the victims that were lost. And you can guess why, because when everyone is running, rat race, even if you used to be a caregiver, at that material time, it will be about saving your life first. And for the people with visual impairment, they don't even know where they're running to. Sometimes they're running into the enemy's hands and things like that. So there is need for special protection, for the persons living with disabilities, particularly during the time of crisis like this. And as part of the recovery effort, there must be deliberate efforts to extend, a hand of fellowship to reintegrate the people living with disabilities, back into the society.
Community.
Yep, so that the healing will be complete, so the healing will be holistic, and the integration and the total restoration of normalcy will carry everyone along. Thank you.
All right. In few seconds, can you give hope to someone out there living with disability?
Well, I think people living with disabilities out there need to avoid self-pity. You need to believe in yourself. Ada Onogo captured that very succinctly. That no matter the intervention that comes your way as a person living with disabilities, if you don't believe in yourself, it won't result to the desired impact will not be felt. So you need to believe in yourself that you can do it. Then any help that comes will serve as a boost to you. But if you have given up, then no matter the amount of intervention, the aid, the help, it will not yield the desired result.
All right, thank you very much. I think that's the size of our package today. Thank you very much, Chief Ayuba, for coming on the program today. Yes, listeners, I hand you over to Joseph.
It's been an interesting conversation. If you're out there, you have one form of disability or the other, as Chief has rightly highlighted, don't give up. You are the first source of motivation to yourself. It starts from within you. Don't give up. That will be the size of our edition for today. We're glad you could make it, Chief. Thank you very much. We hope to engage you on other further engagement. Listener, we thank you for listening. We thank you for all our callers that actually participated. Thank you very much. Let's do this again next week, God willing. My name is Joseph Ojedeji. Blessed are the peacemakers. Thank you very much. Remain blessed.